Then the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered a council and said, "What shall we do? For this man works many signs. If we let him alone like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and nation." And one of them, Caiaphas, being the high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all, nor do you consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and not that the whole nation should perish." Now this he did not say on his own authority, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation. And not for that nation only, but also that he would gather together in one the children of God who were scattered abroad. Then from that day on, they plotted to put him to death. Therefore Jesus no longer walked openly among the Jews, but went from there into the country, near the wilderness, to a city called Ephraim, and there remained with his disciples. And the Passover of the Jews was near, and many went from the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves. Then they sought Jesus and spoke among themselves as they stood in the temple, "What do you think, that he will not come to the feast?" Now both the chief priests and the Pharisees had given a command that if anyone knew where he was, he should report it, that they might seize him. Oh, okay, we can get started. A bunch of things I want to say tonight, so a tricky evening. First thing I want to say is that a section of scripture like this, in the past I would have skipped if there was going to be anyone new in the room, just because I wouldn't have thought it was very rich. But for some reason lately, every single section is just dripping with meaning, and it doesn't matter, and just that right there is enough for a year, can stay there. And I hope to talk about that at all. I sent a video on the Center's text chain by Wolfgang Smith. I don't know if any of you watched it. I really hope you do if you haven't. You really need to listen to it. I've listened to it 3 times now. I'll listen to it at least 6 or 7 times. And I also bought his book, because it's profound. So Wolfgang Smith has 3 PhDs, one in mathematics, one in physics, and one in philosophy. So he's no dummy. And he's a very interesting person. He said that when he entered academia, he felt himself as an outsider and never felt quite in, and never could quite accept the paradigm that was being taught to him scientifically. And the reason for that is because he felt like there were assumptions that were unfounded in science, that were being made before any reasoning was happening, and that no one was seeing. And it's gratifying. Lately, I've listened to a number of scholars, and I'm not a scholar, so my way is mysticism. So I have experience with God, then I have direct mystical experience with God, and then I think about the world in light of that mystical experience. And I come to certain perspectives or conclusions about life that all scientists say are wrong. And so I can't underestimate, I cannot stress enough, if you haven't watched that video, watch it. And then watch it a few more times till you understand it. It's profound. Because, I went to massage therapy school where they lied to us constantly. They taught us pseudoscience. But the use of the pseudoscience was good. It made you feel like there was a study that was quoted all the time, a Japanese scientist who they would pray over water, and then they'd freeze it, And then they said, when we say loving things to the water, it freezes and the crystals are beautiful. And then when we say mean things to the water and we freeze it, the crystals are ugly. And that turned out to just be a simple matter of picking the pretty ones when you say nice things and picking the ugly ones when you say mean things. It turned out to be untrue. But this was part of my paradigm growing up into spirituality. And there were numbers of sort of pseudoscience experiments that were handed to us. But the thing it did, though, it was all wrong, is the thing. It wasn't true. But the thing is it made you think, okay, yes, the world is meaningful, or it's influenced by our consciousness. There's something good about this world we're living in that isn't just rocks and molecules and atoms. And that was such a wonderful feeling. But then when I became intellectually curious, I started researching those kind of studies, and every single study that had been taught to me was not true, had been falsified. And that was heartbreaking, because then it's like, so then the question arose, why is God so hidden? Why is God so anonymous? Now, this is a question for philosophers. They actually speak about God's anonymity, God's humility, and how God won't compete and won't yell and won't scream. It's so there that if you just get quiet, you know it. So this is a legitimate question, but this was different. This is like, and so all of the studies I was taught turned out to be fake. The people that wrote them knew better, so they're kind of liars. The books I was reading were written by people that were lying. I won't name a bunch of names, but I could go down the list because I was an avid reader in the New Age movement. And it turned out to all be pseudoscience, and it just broke my heart. It just broke my heart. And so I know there's God, I know there's miracles, there's no doubts about any of that, but with in the absence of that pseudoscientific evidence that God is real and that consciousness is real, I was left with what the scientists are saying now about life. And it was bleak. It's bleak. It's like, I know it's not true, but it's a bleak picture being told to us about life. And then there are prominent scientists going on the world, making sure they hammer the bleakness into you, making sure you know for sure that this here's the paradigm, here's the a priori assumptions that the scientific world right now carries forth, but they're unfounded. But here's the assumptions. Life began as an accident. So it just happened. They can't tell you how. You just have to trust that it happened somehow magically. It's a bunch of stuff in a soup, and maybe the lightning struck it. We don't know. But somehow, over lots and lots of time, stuff just started to arise. Life just started to arise. And I'm no scientist, so I'll do the best I can here. You need to listen to this guy because he knows it. Okay, so somehow it just arose, but all by accident. And then, just by random chance over billions and billions of years, it all accidentally, with no input from above of any kind, it just accidentally, randomly popped out one day, and we were sitting here with eyes and minds and music and art and literature and love and romance and just the whole mix of humanity. Somehow that all just accidentally happened over billions and billions of years. And what Wolfgang is saying in this interview and in his work, and he's a serious person, no one is going to ever accuse him of being a pseudoscientist. What he's saying is that's all just wrong, and that in the last 20 or 30 years it's been proven to be wrong. We're not waiting for it to be proven to be wrong. It's wrong. And that it's just because of dogma and religious thinking in the pejorative sense, the negative. I mean, I'm way religious, but if you think of religious thinking in that negative sense of I just believe no matter what, that's it. This is the way it is, and if you give me absolute evidence this isn't the way it is, it's still this way. In that negative sense, he said, all of science is following a dogma. a priori assumptions that are untrue, unfounded in science, and unquestioned because they're part of an unquestioned worldview they don't know they hold. And then all evidence is interpreted in light of those a priori assumptions. This is what he's saying. Basically saying, if you're a physicist, you have been learning nonsense your whole life. Now, he doesn't mean nonsense because, he's not a fake scientist, so he doesn't think nothing good has come out of our physics. But what he thinks we've done is we've taken reality, which is this wide. It's just my words now. We've taken reality that's this wide, and we've denied most of reality. He's going all the way back to Plato and Socrates for this, when we knew that everything you saw, everything, had God in it, had meaning in it, and had purpose in it. And a movement happened within philosophy that sort of made life only material, just stuff. He believes it was effectively destroyed by Plato, but that it was picked up around the 17th century. They let go of the arguments that destroyed it and picked it back up. And that our scientific paradigm now is a heretical paradigm that looks at one tiny, tiny fragment of reality and says, this is everything. This is everything. And actually, Wolfgang is not denying this little fragment is real. He's not saying this isn't real. He's just saying all the assumptions we make about this thing are a priori assumptions that have not been demonstrated in any way scientifically. So this is staggering. It's staggering. And so what does that mean, though? Well, I hope this sounds like a sermon on Christianity. I mean, it really is, man. You gotta just bear with me here. So here's what he's saying. He's saying that physicists are telling us that everything is just mere matter. You are just made of atoms. And that all those atoms accidentally organized into you, but there's no designer. There's no purpose for the design. That means you have no purpose. Rocks have no purpose. Animals and plants and trees and butterflies, all the beauty, the richness, the profound beauty that can make a person weep who's paying attention is meaningless. And it is going nowhere. It's going nowhere. Just one day, the sun's going to superheat and melt us all down. We're all going to be dead, and that's it. Just all chance. Or we're going to get hit by an asteroid. The whole thing meant nothing. This is the a priori assumption, the religion that science is teaching. Science. They make a distinction between science and scientism. Science being the thing that's got heat going in the building, and we're really glad I'm filming this video. Watch it on YouTube if I remember to upload it. Jill. Like that's all great. No one's saying science is bad, but scientism is this other religious thing, this dogma thing that comes along with it. And Wolfgang's position is that it has effectively killed any chance of any human being finding any meaning at all. Because it has reduced a rich creation down to just a bunch of parts that don't matter. And you have this assumption in your life. By the time you're 10 or 12 years old, you don't know when it was taught to you. They don't tell you they're teaching you that, what they do now, but they didn't then. And so before you have a mind to question or the intelligence to question, you already have a belief system worse than false religion, way worse than false religion. If you were raised in a religion that's sort of a scam, trust me, this is worse than that by a long ways. And we all have it, and that's it. So then now, and I know this because I didn't learn in school. I actually, I knew this, but I didn't have the language to say it. I knew education was destroying people. I knew it. I couldn't have said any of this. In fact, I never was able to say it as an adult. That only when I read great thinkers saying it did I say, that's what I could see, but I couldn't see that I could see it. But I remember sitting in school and saying, this is killing everyone. And it's killing me. I even thought it was evil. That's what I thought. But not the facts, just the paradigm behind the facts that was unstated. So I escaped it because I rebelled. I said, I don't believe in school. I'd rather smoke marijuana than be at school, take LSD at school. What I'm not going to do is take this joke seriously. And I just didn't. Because of that, I didn't absorb it. I remember when I started reading serious literature, scientific literature, philosophical literature, I remember being shocked that people actually adopted the worldviews they were taught in school. I remember my heart going, whoa, people believed that. But I didn't mean it like they're dumb. I thought, I missed the boat. And this is where I was at the time. I missed the boat. They actually took those worldviews and thought that way, but I didn't. So then at 19, when I had a spiritual awakening, everything blew open and I had no materialism paradigm to overcome. I didn't have it. So for me, every single thing you saw was God telling you something. Every tree, the symbology of a tree, which is why I have a tree behind me, it's my favorite symbol from nature, was packed with profound meaning. I could sit with a tree and weep for the beauty of it. I could see a squirrel and weep for the beauty of that squirrel. And I could learn from its existence something about my own life that mattered. This is what it was like to not have that scientistic thinking dominating my mind. So almost everyone has been deeply polluted by this sort of false religion. It's a false religion. What's wonderful about Wolfgang is not just some guy saying, I saw God. I mean, you have to believe me. Jesus says, if someone tells you, believe them. This word is spread by faith. So I'm not trying to knock. I'm telling you, God is in this stuff. This matters. Squirrels matter. They matter. They are something. Just not some accident of time. There's something. There's something. And you can touch that thing and be touched by God by that thing. And people too, obviously. Everything. It's all beautiful and it's all wonderful. And your life can be filled with meaning everywhere you look. If you're not seeing dead matter that accidentally came into existence, has no purpose and is going nowhere. Okay, okay, I know this, so who cares Wolfgang is saying it? Well, Wolfgang, has 3 PhDs. He can discuss the point in history at which a heresy that had been successfully refuted by Plato and Socrates was picked back up. He could tell you when it happened. And he can tell you why they're wrong. Or why he believes they're wrong. And so I recommend this book because I believe that very few people have not been poisoned by scientism. Very few people live in a world that is sacred. Someone bought a house to flip it across the street. They cut every tree down. It just makes my heart ache. It just hurts. You can't do that to sacred. You can't do that. If you're going to cut a tree down, it's a big, big deal. If you're touching God's creation. But if it's just stuff, you can just use it up. It's not to your liking, you just burn it, doesn't matter. But if it's God's creation, if it matters, if a creator, a designer produced it, then now it's sacred. You don't just cut it down. You may. I'm not saying never. I'm not trying to make dogmas out of things. But it's obviously something very different when it's sacred. You treat it differently. It's this glass just in the physical world. The scientistic, scientism, religion world. It's just atoms. It's nothing. It means nothing. It's nothing. It's just glass. cares? But if Wolfgang is right, then there's God in this glass. Right? If the mystics are right, there is God in this glass. But it's been rough to have the mystics saying one thing and science saying another. That's been rough. That's been rough for me, and I've seen miracles, and I know for a fact God is real. Like, I know for a fact. Anyone who's had my experiences will know for a fact. But I remember still feeling the weight of depravity come over me when I heard physicists make the argument that there's nothing here. And I thought, if I didn't know, I would believe them. I would believe them if I didn't know. And even though I know, their words are a burden to me. They're painful. So what Wolfgang has done is about a number of things. I'm not going to give it all away because it's ridiculous. But listen to this guy. Just listen. It doesn't matter if he's right or not. Listen to a genuine scientist saying, look, I think this is all BS. Here's what I really think. And here's why I think it. And here's a problem in physics it solves that no one has been able to solve. So that's the key, not just saying stuff. Okay, so Wolfgang thinks he solved the quantum measurement problem. Okay, so I don't know if you guys know what this is, but here's what it is. You get down into the little parts, the molecules, and down to atoms. They got these electrons. And these electrons are not anywhere. Well, they are, but they're not. They go in and out of existence. They kind of go into what I think is a certain meditative state. When you're in absorption and you're not unconscious, you're in the void. Sometimes if I'm thinking scientifically, I call it subspace. In there, it's weird. It's there's time, but there's no space. So when in there, you can touch things that are very far away, instantly. You can connect to them. Everything is accessible to you in this space. There's time, but there's no space. I call it subspace because I'm a Trekkie. I'm not a physicist, so I could just I can use Star Trek as my guide there. But there's a place like that in meditation. You get down, usually we absorb into it unconsciously, but if you're conscious, you're everywhere and nowhere. You're in this dimension where it's like I got to walk over to get to the other side of the room, but in subspace I don't. In subspace it's all in one place. If you think of it, you're there, kind of, is the thing, instant. So but these particles are weird. They when you set up an experiment for them to be somewhere, they are there. So that's weird, and they don't take time to get there. They're just there. There seems to be no time lag of any kind, so that the observer is affecting the observed. That's weird. And we're all made of that stuff. I was telling my daughter about this on the way to school. And she said, so wait, Dad, so everything's just popping in and out of existence all the time? And I said, yeah, man, that's true. And she said, that's so weird. Okay, so, but who cares, right? But here's the thing. So they can't figure out why, because our whole paradigm it's stuff, right? It's matter, it's mechanics. This shouldn't change based on how you see it. This shouldn't change at all. And it sure as hell should not change instantly. They shouldn't change instantly. That's not right. There's going to at least be a lag, and we'll figure it out. But what is that? So there's this problem with this, and they can't solve it. No one's been able to solve it. Wolfgang thinks he did, and he's got a little equation for it. And it makes perfect sense. But he had to avail himself of Vedic literature to solve it. Wolfgang's a Christian, but he's like all intellectuals. Like us, he loves all things. He loves all traditions. He's rooted in Christianity, but he loves everything. So here's the thing. All he's saying is this. He's saying everything you see exists in 3 different dimensions at the same time. Okay? So one of them is the physical, which is subject to time and space. Okay? But one of them is the intermediary dimension, which is time but no space. And the third is what he calls the ab-eternal realm, not subject to time or space. Okay? So then he starts quoting mathematicians. In 1998, a mathematician has some math that, I don't know if you guys know about math. I always thought math was terrible. I hated it. Turns out it's like weirdly, scientists will come up with equations, okay, mathematicians, that they're just doing equations, all right? They're not doing anything. They're on a chalkboard. And this is what I thought. They're just numbers. Just shut up. Just the typical uneducated guy, just who cares? Numbers. I don't want to deal with numbers. So, and that's my daughter, and I'm trying to get her to see the beauty of math. These men and women are coming up with freaking equations that they're tied to nothing. Then they go and talk to their quantum physicist friends, and they're having a problem with their observations of reality. And they go, gosh, that sounds a little like this equation I've come up with. So then they bring the equation over and it solves the physicist's problem. So why? If math is just made up, why does that work? That shouldn't work. That shouldn't work at all. Just doing stuff on a chalkboard should have no freaking impact whatsoever on a real problem physicists are having. That shouldn't be unless there's some truth to math, right? So this is what we know about mathematics. In case you have my problem with math now, unhave it. Mathematics is really powerful. It's not the end. Everything isn't math. It's one of Wolfgang's main things is everything isn't math. It's not all reducible to math. In fact, he says, the atoms of this were until they figured out that things appear and disappear and do what you say. So now it's not even reducible to math on the most basic level. But this thing has 3 dimensions. Okay? And it is something. It is something. And whatever that thing is not reducible to its parts. And you're not either. This is his main premise. Because of these 3 dimensions, that you are not. You all of your parts, even humming together the way they are, it cannot define you. And he's got all kinds of science to show why this is a fact. You really need to listen. There's some of it, like just thinking now is visual, understanding of visual, how we see. Have you ever heard that you don't see the world, you just see what the brain makes of the world? Have you heard that? I'm sure you've heard that if you follow science at all. You're not really seeing the world. You're seeing, we don't know what the world even is actually, because your brain is just picking up light photons and then making up images in its head about them. Have you ever heard that? Been fully debunked. Turns out, no, you're seeing the world. And some experiments have shown this. So here's where Wolfgang says, see where science separates you from life. Scientism separates you from life. It takes away meaning. It tells you don't even see the real world. You're not even interacting with it. It alienates you from meaning and reality. And all of these theories that have shown to be false had the same effect of alienating us from reality. Can't even trust what you see or not even seeing what you see. How divorced from meaning does that make you? Right? So divorced from meaning. Such an empty, dead world to live in. Okay, so he thinks he's solved the quantum measurement problem, but that it requires one to readopt. It actually isn't Hinduism, it's Plato's Platonic worldview. It's really Platonic. It's not really Hindu, but he uses these Hindu words, but it's Platonic. Plato, he said, look, we already knew all this. We already knew this. But here's the thing. So just one experiment. So there hasn't been enough time by 50% for all of this to accidentally unfold through random chance. The mathematicians have done serious equations on this, and they just say, look, it's just not possible. This all just happened accidentally. There has to be information being fed in vertically in the system. And it's think about that. Just think about that. there must be. He said, look, if everything's zeros and ones in binary code, and you can write all of the beauty, like all of the philosophy of Western literature in an encyclopedia, right? He said, for you to believe this universe happened by accident, you must believe that given a long enough amount of time, you could flip a coin, zeros and ones, binary code, and have it come out in order in the cycle, and the whole Western intellectual tradition would come out in order at some point. But he said, but that's not even close to what it would really be like. It's just an analogy to make it make sense to your brain. Could you do that? Could you flip a coin? I mean, when the family doesn't agree on which movie to go see, man, I mean, we flip a coin. They just don't want to fight, so we flip a coin. It's the best way. It's not. I don't get the last say. My wife doesn't. Cassie sometimes does, but we just flip a coin. And, so I know how rough that is. Like, I just want to see my movie. There's one I want to really see, there's one I don't want to see, and there's one that's okay, if they win, but really not that one, and damned if it isn't often that one, right? Like, you just can't win that toy. Okay, so now you think you're going to binary code all of Western literature in order? Think so? No freaking way. These mathematicians have said it's just not possible that it happened. It's what's the word? Rigorously impossible. Very specific scientific word. It's rigorously impossible. So all of this stuff has been coming forth to shatter the lie we've been taught by scientism, which stole all meaning from us. So he's part of an initiative where they want to start educating people again. And so I'm super interested in physics when you tell me there's meaning in it. Now I'm interested. I can understand articles they write. I'm like, I couldn't care less before. It's just numbers. I don't care. Who cares? Now you tell me, though, that this didn't accidentally emerge for no purpose, but something, he doesn't say God, because it could be 18 dimensions before God's involved. But he just says information is coming from above. This is his sticking point. He insists. Information is coming from above, and that it must be coming in instantaneously, because it can't happen slowly and get where you're going. It can't. So then now all of a sudden the universe is really big. There's all this meaning and purpose and information in it. We don't know where it comes from. I think I know, but it might come through 18 other steps first, so I'm not going to say it's God, because then when it's this other thing, they'll say, see, you said it was God, and we know it's this, yeah, but where's that come from? It goes back somewhere. The point is there's meaning, and we know it now. We know it scientifically. And there's a few things I'm not going to say that, I'm just not going to say them, but it's staggering what he says, and he says that it's not debatable. We're here. He said we're waiting for the scientists to come along, and there's a bunch of wiggling and fighting, and they're very uncomfortable. But he said we're already here. We're already here. Think of this. Think of this. And he said, and now we're living in a world where almost all of humanity lived in for all of our existence. A world filled with deep meaning again. And purpose again. And you know how radical it sounds. You must have scientism in you. Doesn't it sound radical? What? We're going to say that science points to a creator? What? Even if there's more creators, I mean, it's not a lock for Christianity, right? It's a lock for something, right? That's the thing. It's a lock for something. And some are going to say it's aliens. Some are going to say, yeah, well, it's aliens. And you say, well, who created them? Aliens created them. Well, then that's the eternal regression thing. Eventually, you got to come to something rather than nothing, and that something had to be a necessity of existence. That's the God. But just soak that up, man. That's in a nutshell that hour-long interview with Wolfgang Smith. But you can see you must feel some relief, or what the pressure of it has been, the weight of it. Even those of you who know. I know. I've seen the white light come in and cure cancer while I was in the room. Incurable cancer. I've seen it. I've seen cysts disappear overnight. I've seen vision problems and hearing problems healed instantly, not on a stage where they hire people. These are people I know. These are people I know. I know. And I still feel the weight of that burden of scientism. It hurts my heart. And I think, how will I reach anyone? They're taught not to listen to people. Don't believe based on someone's word. Jesus comes in and says, do believe based on my word. You know why he says that? Because he thinks the eternal dimension is in you. And he thinks some part of you can recognize truth. Because you have truth in you. Because you live in a world of meaning. So he thinks when he tells the truth, you should somehow, some part of you should say, I can hear that. But that can't be true if it's all particles and meaningless. But it is true. You can hear someone. If you can't believe, you don't believe everything. I don't believe any one story, but millions and millions and millions across all generations of people experiencing God, they're not just all crazy and I'm the smartest one. That's insane. And have you ever heard that if a tree falls in the forest and no one was there to hear it, did it make a sound? Scientism would say if a tree falls in the forest and a scientist wasn't there to measure it, it didn't happen. It only is true if we have labs to prove it. So you can't believe anything until we set up a lab to prove it. We are the purveyors of knowledge. We're the priests. I've listened to some atheists say, you know what, I want my old priests back. These are atheists. They say, I don't believe them, but they were better than the new priests. These are atheists saying that. I want my old priests back. They say they're both these are atheists, they're both problematic, but these new priests are worse because they've stolen all meaning from everybody. Okay, so that's the video. That's why I said it. I think it's the most important video I've ever seen. I've heard this kind of thing. It's not brand new, but there's just a gravity with Wolfgang. The interviewers know it. They knew who they're talking to. They tell you this is not just anybody. This is this singular kind of person. Listen to what he's saying. Okay, so that's that. That's that, and I hope you'll take the time to listen, because I feel a relief myself. So then probably almost anyone will, if they hear it. He likes to just say it's all nonsense. Then his education, so I had a big problem with school, always had a chip on my shoulder about school, but then I became educated, self-educated, because I still had a chip about school, but I read a lot, lots and lots and lots. So, okay, I really want to be educated. I believe in education, but this solves that, because what Wolfgang is saying is everyone needs to be educated in meaning. He uses a Platonic model for this, meaning, so that they can look at the world meaningfully. And now he is a rare person. Almost no one can reason as well as him. So he doesn't think everyone is now going to become a quantum physicist or a polymath, right? But what he's saying is we are teaching people there is no meaning. We're teaching that. And we're using all kinds of facts that don't say it to say it. And we need to reverse that and get people grounded in meaning and purpose, so they can grow up filled with excitement and joy and wonder and purpose. And some of them are going to become physicists who discover, instead of this very narrow set of physics, a bigger picture. And this was when I was at the height of my certain mystical experiences. One of the things that just kept coming is our sciences are not our sciences. There are, I could just see it, that we're missing entire kinds of sciences, entire realms of inquiry that we've never even thought of because of this false paradigm. And somehow it was directly linked to love. Something about love being carrying the most information. Actually, love carrying all information. That it's not cold and dead, it's love. And love is the light of life. Right? Jesus says, I am the light of life. Well, that's love. And love is infinite information. You shine it through a prism and out comes the whole universe. Right? That's the thing. That's love. And love is real. It's not fake. It's not a feeling. It's a force and a power. Okay, so next week, different class, because I'm not going to do this one. So, whatever I wrote is not coming out tonight. So Jesus says, I am the light of life. Okay, so here's what I want to say. Wolfgang says the same thing in his own words. Jesus says, I am the light of life. Okay? So he's a Jew. Well, here's what he can't mean. He can't mean we're all kind of it. We're all kind of the light of life. A Jew wouldn't even say God's name out loud out of profound reverence for the other, out of profound respect for the other. There were things you could say about God that were disrespectful enough, like just using his name, that you could be stoned to death for it. Okay, this is a culture that had a deep and profound respect for God. Jesus starts coming around and saying, I am that. I am that. I'm not a manifestation of it. I'm not a creation of it like you. He very often distinguishes himself from you. That's us. He says, I am the light of life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. So when Jesus says this, he's not saying, yeah, we're kind of all God. I recently had a bunch of new people in here, and one came up and said, yeah, I knew we were all God. And I don't want to talk, I want to bust him, or who cares what he thinks as long as he doesn't come back, but if he comes back, we'll talk joyously. But that's not what Jesus is saying. You can't read his words and say, yeah, we're all God. No, God is someone. God is someone. Here's Wolfgang's thinking, but he has all this math and science. He said, you're a person. Why would God not be a person? That doesn't even make sense. We're made in the image of God. Persons are everywhere you look. I got this new dog, this little pug, and it was love at first sight. I'm not kidding. I have not been this in love in many, many years. I can't believe it. I just cannot believe this freaking dog, man. And she does things she's not supposed to do, and it's so cute. And she's chewing up my stuff, and I can't stop her because she's so cute. And she lays on me, and it feels like this hug for hours at a time, and I'm just in love with her. But the thing is, she's a ridiculously cool dog. We're compatible. Let's put it that way. There's chemistry there. And everything she does blows my freaking mind. And I just feel her. I know her. And she knows me. And that's a person. That's a person. That is a person. That's a person, man. You're a person, and that's a person, and God is a person. The personal God. That's Jesus' thing. I came to reveal to you the personal God of love.